The Middle East witnessed a seismic shift on December 8, 2024, with the downfall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Assad's brutal reign crumbled under civil war and international pressure. Syrians, exhausted by bloodshed, celebrated in the streets. But the euphoria was short-lived, creating a dangerous power vacuum. The weakened state became vulnerable to external exploitation. The international community watched, uncertain of Syria's future. As the dust settled on the ruins of the Assad regime, Israel wasted no time in asserting its dominance in the volatile region. Within 48 hours of Assad's downfall, Israeli warplanes roared across Syrian airspace, launching a relentless aerial bombardment campaign. Over 500 airstrikes targeted a vast array of Syrian military installations, suspected chemical weapon sites, and strategic infrastructure. The deafening roar of explosions echoed across the Syrian landscape, a stark reminder of Israel's unwavering commitment to safeguarding its national security interests. But Israel's military response was not limited to air power. Ground forces, heavily armed and battle-hardened, crossed into Syrian territory, marking the first such incursion in over 5 decades. The Israeli Defense Forces quickly established a presence in the demilitarized buffer zone, seizing control of key positions and sending a clear message to Syria's neighbors that Israel would not tolerate any threats to its sovereignty. This swift and decisive military action, while met with condemnation from some quarters, underscored Israel's determination to shape the post-Assad landscape to its advantage. At the heart of Israel's military campaign lay a strategic imperative: to cripple Syria's military capabilities and prevent the transfer of advanced weaponry to hostile actors. The Assad regime, heavily armed by Russia and Iran, possessed a formidable arsenal that posed a direct threat to Israel's security. Israeli airstrikes focused on dismantling this arsenal, targeting air defense systems, missile launchers, and ammunition depots. The goal was to degrade Syria's ability to threaten Israel or its allies, effectively neutralizing a potential adversary in the region. Military analysts estimated that Israel's air campaign had decimated up to 80% of Syria's military capabilities, a testament to the precision and effectiveness of the IDF's strikes. The destruction of these weapon systems not only weakened Syria's military, but also served as a deterrent against future aggression. Israel's relentless pursuit of Syrian military targets demonstrated its unwavering commitment to maintaining a qualitative military edge in the region, a cornerstone of its national security strategy. Looming large over Israel's military actions in Syria was the specter of Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed Shiite militant group based in Lebanon. Hezbollah, designated a terrorist organization by many Western countries, has long been a thorn in Israel's side, engaging in numerous cross-border attacks and armed conflicts. Israel has accused Syria of providing Hezbollah with advanced weaponry, including long-range missiles and sophisticated anti-tank systems, posing a significant threat to Israeli cities and military installations. The fall of the Assad regime, while welcomed by Israel, also raised concerns about the potential for these weapons to fall into Hezbollah's hands. Preventing such a scenario was a top priority for Israel. The IDF's operations in Syria were not only aimed at dismantling the Syrian military, but also at intercepting and destroying any weapons shipments destined for Hezbollah. Israel's determination to prevent Hezbollah from acquiring advanced weaponry underscored the group's enduring threat to Israeli security and the complex web of alliances and rivalries that define the Middle East. Section 5. A Tangled Web. Iran's involvement and regional implications. Iran, the Shiite powerhouse in the region, has been a staunch ally of the Assad regime, providing military and financial support throughout the Syrian civil war. Iran's involvement in Syria stems from its desire to maintain a strategic corridor to Lebanon, where it arms and supports Hezbollah. Israel views Iran's growing influence in Syria with deep suspicion, seeing it as a direct threat to its national security. The fall of Assad, while weakening Iran's position in Syria, also raised concerns about Tehran's response and the potential for further escalation. Iran, despite its setbacks, remains a formidable player in the region, with extensive military capabilities and a network of proxies and allies. Israel's actions in Syria are likely to further inflame tensions between the two arch-rivals, increasing the risk of a broader regional conflict. The Syrian crisis, far from being a localized conflict, has become a proxy war between regional and global powers, with Iran and Israel locked in a dangerous game of brinkmanship. Section 6, a human tragedy, displacement and casualties in the conflict's wake. Lost, amidst the geopolitical calculations and strategic maneuvering, is the immense human suffering inflicted by the Syrian conflict. The fall of the Assad regime, while marking a potential turning point in the war, has also unleashed a new wave of violence and displacement. The United Nations estimates that over 100,000 people have been displaced by the recent fighting, adding to the millions already uprooted by years of civil war. These displaced families, many of them women and children, face a precarious existence, lacking access to basic necessities like food, water, and shelter. The civilian toll of the conflict continues to mount, with reports of significant casualties from both the fighting and the ensuing chaos. Hospitals, already overwhelmed by years of war, are struggling to cope with the influx of wounded, while humanitarian organizations face immense challenges in reaching those in need. The Syrian people, caught in the crossfire of a complex and brutal conflict, continue to pay the heaviest price, their lives shattered by a war that seems to have no end in sight. Section 7, Global Condemnation, the UN's stance and international reactions. The international community, deeply divided over the Syrian crisis, has reacted to Israel's military actions with a mixture of condemnation and cautious support. The United Nations Security Council, convened for an emergency session, condemned Israel's strikes as a violation of Syrian sovereignty and called for restraint. However, the Security Council remains deadlocked, with permanent members Russia and China, both allies of the Assad regime, blocking any resolutions that could lead to sanctions or military intervention against Israel. The European Union, while expressing concern over the escalating violence, has refrained from taking any concrete action against Israel, highlighting the complexities of the Syrian conflict and the lack of consensus among world powers on how to address it. The international community's inability to present a united front or take decisive action underscores the deep divisions that have hampered efforts to resolve the Syrian crisis since its inception. Section 8. A divided world, U.S. support for Israel and the quest for stability. The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has expressed unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself, echoing Israel's claims that its actions are necessary to prevent the transfer of advanced weaponry to Hezbollah. The U.S. has also condemned Iran's involvement in Syria, accusing Tehran of fueling the conflict and destabilizing the region. However, the U.S., wary of being drawn into another protracted conflict in the Middle East, has ruled out any direct military intervention in Syria. Instead, the U.S. is focusing on diplomatic efforts, working with regional allies to contain the fallout from the Syrian crisis and prevent a wider regional war. The U.S.'s support for Israel, while unwavering, is also tempered by concerns over the potential for further escalation and the need to find a political solution to the Syrian conflict. The U.S. faces a delicate balancing act, seeking to safeguard its interests while navigating the treacherous waters of Middle Eastern geopolitics. Section 9. A call to action, the international community's role in resolving the Syrian crisis. The fall of the Assad regime, while marking a pivotal moment in the Syrian conflict, also presents the international community with a unique opportunity to work towards a lasting peace. The power vacuum created by Assad's ouster demands a coordinated international response to prevent further chaos and bloodshed. The international community must prioritize the protection of civilians, ensuring humanitarian access to those in need, and working to alleviate the suffering of millions displaced by the conflict. A sustainable solution to the Syrian crisis requires a negotiated political settlement that addresses the root causes of the conflict and paves the way for a more inclusive and democratic Syria. This will require all parties to the conflict, as well as regional and global powers, to engage in good faith negotiations and make difficult compromises. The international community has a moral and strategic imperative to act decisively and in concert to prevent the Syrian conflict from spiraling further out of control. The future of Syria, and indeed the stability of the entire region, hangs in the balance.